So, we have finally got some new physical evidence and news regarding the PlayStation 5, and yesterday Sony gave us our official first look at the new controller for the PlayStation 5, and for the very first time they have actually dropped the DualShock title, which we've had for the past 3 generations of PlayStation consoles, and we now have a new look at their DualSense wireless controller, which we'll be able to see on the PS5. And this is a really exciting time. Obviously, next generation is coming up real fast. The PS5 is out in a matter of months, so to see an actual real good look at the controller here is really nice to see. So let's just jump into the details. So first of all, let's take a look at the controller itself. Here it is, we can see it, and the controller is interesting. That's definitely to say the least. The controller is interesting. We can see it, it's just a very interesting looking design. And what I do want to bring up is that obviously when this controller first came out, when the pictures of it first came out, I think a lot of people, including myself, had a very harsh reaction to it. We were all like, ugh, like that's ew. But if you actually look at it, I think it's just the it's just the color scheme. The color scheme of the white on black, it's something that's not really been seen before in a controller, especially a first-party controller, and it just was a bit off-putting at first, but I think upon further reflection, when you look at it, it's actually very, very similar to that of the PS4 controller. Very, very similar. Like, if you look at a lot of the fan edits that have been of the controller where it's all in black, it's actually very similar to the PS4 controller in its design and its look. Everything is basically in the same place. The thumbsticks are essentially the same. They basically look exactly the same. The buttons and the D-pad basically look the same. Obviously, you've got the speaker in the same place and things like that. So it is very, very similar. But in terms of its build, it looks to be a bit bulkier. It looks to be a bit bigger than the PS4 controller, which, in my opinion, is definitely a good move. I did find the PS4 controller to be a bit too small at times, and can be a bit, I felt like my hands were too wrapped around it for certain games, and it might just be a problem with me because I do have a condition with my hands which kind of does flare up when I game, but I never really experienced that with the Xbox controller, but I do with the PS4 controller, and the fact that this is taking more of an Xbox looking design in terms of the bulk of it, I think that's a good move. So it might just be a thing for me, but I think it's a good look. And the color scheme itself, like I said, it's very off-putting at first, but it has grown on me. I actually quite like it. A lot of people are bringing up and throwing around the word futuristic, and it does look futuristic. It does look very modern as well, and I feel like the control scheme, or the color scheme, sorry, it is very different to what we've seen before from other consoles and from other companies, but I think it's going to be interesting to see because I think that this could be a good indicator as to the color of the console. I think the console could have a very similar color scheme to this. We could see a black and white console, which obviously Sony has always done individually black consoles or individually white consoles, but I think that the PS5, based on this controller, could be a black and white design, which when we actually get a look at that, which, you know, could be very soon, maybe around E3 time, you know, I think it could pair really well with this controller if it does it right. So let's talk about the details of the controller itself. We do find out that it has adaptive triggers and haptic feedback, which is something that the Xbox One controller has had for a while, particularly the haptic feedback, which, if you don't know what that is, basically it has, like, in the triggers, it basically has rumble. So obviously the controller has had rumble ever since the PlayStation 2, and the PS4 controller obviously has rumble as well, but the PS5 controller will also have rumble in the triggers, it seems, which, like I said, the Xbox One controller has had that since it launched, and it basically just allows for a bit more immersiveness when you're playing certain games, particularly racing games, like over on Xbox. If you've ever played the Forza Motorsport games, they are very well handled with the adaptive triggers because they just allow you to kind of get more feedback from the game itself, and again, it just makes it a bit more immersive and gets you more involved in the game that you're playing, which is a nice touch. And again, more immersion is never a bad thing when you're playing video games. Interestingly as well, there's going to be a built-in microphone, which means you actually don't need a headset to chat on the console. This could be interesting depending on how good it is. Like, obviously, the microphone that's built into the controller, I can't imagine it's going to be that good. Like, it'll be fine, it'll be doable, but I don't think it'll be particularly, you know, useful. I think you definitely want to get a hand on your headset, you know, get your hands on a headset as quickly as you possibly can, just because it's going to be one of those things where, you know, it's completely functional, it will work, but it's just not as anywhere near high of a quality as some of the other headsets out there that will easily make both game chat and voice chat just so much easier and so much clearer, and just sound a lot better. So yeah, I mean, it's a cool feature for those who perhaps just don't, you know, want to go out and buy a headset, perhaps the type of gamer who, you know, just typically wants to play, you know, a little bit of online with friends every now and then. You know, it's a good thing for that, but for your more hardcore gamer, for the more, you know, hardcore audience, I think that's something that they're just going to completely ignore. There is also a new light bar and a new touchpad, which It looks fairly similar, but it's also a bit different. I mean, the biggest change is the light bar, which actually, it isn't on the back anymore. It's basically just integrated into the touchpad. How that's actually going to work, I don't know, because the light bar on the PS4 did actually serve a function. Like, it was there for certain games, and particularly with the PlayStation VR and with the PlayStation camera and things like that, it was used very much for that, so it could see the controller very clearly. The fact that the light is now completely limited to the touchpad does make me think, is it purely a decorative thing? Like, is it purely aesthetic? Which it could be, but they do mention it specifically, like saying like the light bar is now in a new place, which makes me think it is going to be used in some way or in some regard. It just feels weird because it's so hidden now. You can basically just see like a blue light poking out of the sides of it, so it's an interesting thing. Again, it could be purely aesthetic, and if it is purely aesthetic, I'd rather them just take it out, given the fact that it can really damage the battery at least it did on the PS4 controller anyway. You know, I always had my light bar brightness turned down to the lowest setting. I've had that for years just because it does hurt the battery, but I don't know. Again, it's a thing we're going to have to wait and see. The light bar wasn't particularly used by developers for the PS4 controller, so I don't see why it would be used here. But again, we haven't got all the details about it yet, so it might be something that's a bit more revolutionary than last time. Or again, it may just be something that will get lost by the wayside in this generation as well. Also, they've officially changed the name of the share button to the create button. I don't think it's any different, and I think it's in the exact same place. I'm pretty sure it's this button here. I'm pretty sure that is still the same place. You know, it's the share button. It's now called the create button. It does say more details to follow on that, so I guess we'll find out perhaps new ways in which we can share gaming clips and images and stuff like that. But it is now called the create button, so I guess if you were wondering about that, there it is. So my overall thoughts on this controller is, I like it. I really like it, actually. I think this could potentially be PlayStation's best controller yet. Again, I will admit, I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, if you saw my responses when these images first came out last night, I was kind of repulsed by this controller initially, as many were, and I particularly, you know, I did claim that it looked to be like a third-party controller that you were forced to use at a friend's house. And while I'm still not in love with the color scheme, it has grown on me. It does look very futuristic, it does look cool, it does look, you know, very much like it's pushing, you know, it's kind of like cutting edge. It does give that vibe off of it. And the actual design of the controller itself, again, when you look past the colors, it's actually very, very nice, very ergonomic looking, and again, a lot more ergonomic than the PS4 controller, which the PS4 was a big step up from the PlayStation 3, but still not quite to the levels of quality that I found in both the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One controllers. So this seems to be another step forward towards that, which I'm really excited about, because, you know, I do love PlayStation. I absolutely adore playing on their consoles, so the fact that their controllers are just getting better and better and better is always a good thing. So I'm really looking forward to using this controller and actually getting my hands on it. It's going to be really cool. But what do you guys think about this controller? Make sure you let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and which controller do you prefer? Do you like the look of this one, of the PlayStation 5, or are you looking more forward to the Xbox One S controller, or sorry, the Xbox Series X? I'm always getting them mixed up these days. In terms of my personal opinion, like, I mean, I think they both look really good. Again, this looks like a much better controller. I have a better sense of the Xbox controller just because it's so similar to the Xbox One controller already. Like, the Xbox Series X controller literally looks pretty much identical, minus a couple of minor features, whereas this looks like it could have a different feel, which I'm looking forward to. But, I mean, as you know, as someone who's a bit of a, you know, I'm a bigger fan of PlayStation than I am of Xbox. You know, I'm a very neutral gamer. Like, I have a PS4, I have an Xbox One S. I'm a very neutral gamer, but I do have a preference to PlayStation. So, you know, I do play on PlayStation more than I do Xbox, so if this controller is just getting closer to an Xbox controller, I'm actually happy with that, because, again, I do think Microsoft do have the upper hand when it comes to controllers, so I'm still really excited about this, and overall, I think this controller looks great. Again, the color scheme is a bit iffy, and I think some people might not get over it. Again, it has grown on me personally. I do like the look of it now. I didn't at first, but I do now. So, you know, it could grow on me, and again, new color schemes might come out and things like that, and it's just really exciting now, because we're going to have to wait and see what happens with this controller and how it's going to look with the console when we actually get that. But what do you guys think about it? Make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, guys, if you want to see more gaming videos and gaming related videos just like this one, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads from me, and I hope to see you guys again next time.